G from Catalyst Energies. Thank you for joining me. I'm so grateful that you're here. This is a Catalyst report for Scorpio Sun, Moon, and Rising that is beyond the Great Conjunction. And we are looking at how are we able to move forward and beyond this really transformative time that we just had at the beginning of January. It feels like a lifetime ago, and it was only like a week and a half ago at most. So I think that what I am doing with this series of videos is to take each sign and to look at all of the aspects that have been in play and are in play now that can give some general overview of how to maybe best harness this energy and what part of the chart and what part of your lives this is potentially happening. So for Scorpio, Sun and Moon Rising, especially Rising sign, the Capricorn energy, which is where we're going to start the focus because that's also where Saturn and Pluto have been. That was the Great Conjunction, and then we also have still have Jupiter here, and we have the south node of the moon, and up until just 2 days ago, the sun was here as well. So there's a lot of Capricorn energy here. So for Scorpios, it is your third house of communication and education, grammar school. The third house is about communication, it's about information, it's about what you know, and it's about the steps that you take to get to know it. And so it has to do with education. And so in mundane astrology, when we talk about the third house being about your relationship with like siblings and immediate family and short-term travel, it's really because it's within the context of those relationships in your family that you first learn to actually, move through life. If the first house is you, is the seed, and the second house is everything else, is the medium, the third house is the first point of germination, and that's where you learn to interact the two polarities of subject and object in order to create something. And the third house is the first opportunity as an individual to start developing that ability to know and to apply that knowing later down the line. So it is about communication. It's about the messages that are coming in, the way that we communicate. It's about the thoughts that we have, the mental structure that eventually manifests as our reality. And so for Scorpio risings, Scorpio Sun, Moon, and Rising, the third house with Capricorn here is the way that you communicate, the structure of knowledge, how you interact, the skill set that you have in order to make sense of reality and communicate it and to, be part of, reality is very material, it's very serious, it's very ambitious. So Scorpios just by nature are very ambitious and obsessive, and they are very full of desire. That is the nature of Scorpio, is desire, and a desire to go deep and to get to the depths of the waters. Scorpio is a water sign, so it is ultimately about emotion. But when you look at the third house about the mental activity and your education and their communication skills, it's very serious for Scorpios, and it's very much rooted in power, material power and security, and old traditional ways. Capricorn is definitely about the old guard and the traditions, the things that have lasted for a really long time and remain something that is still standing, essentially. And so for Scorpios, there's been absolutely some sort of transformation and solidification of that transformation with Saturn and Pluto, especially about how how you not even understand, but the way that you communicate your reality, the knowledge that comes in and the way that you speak about it, your education. It's very much about about materialism and really, really stable, powerful security and ambitious. Capricorn is about getting to the mountain no matter what. And when it comes to the third house, it seems to be very much about the way you've learned how to interact with life around you. That is your third house. That is grammar school, right? You learning the basics of knowledge, which is reading and writing and math, essentially. These are the critical, simple points that you build more complex thought and ideas onto. And so it's very serious for Scorpios. And that is being transformed. So the Sun and Mercury now are in Aquarius, which is the fourth house. These are naturally square each other, the first and the fourth house. And this is a desire for freedom, absolutely. Aquarius is in the mind, and it's about there is no polarity necessarily with Aquarius. The polarity has balanced itself out in order for information to flow very directly. It's like laser focus with Aquarius. It's also cosmic consciousness and kind of outside the realm of what is Capricorn, which is tradition. And Aquarius breaks tradition and forges new ground and is innovative. And this is where Scorpios are finding their emotional security, because that's the fourth house, is where your personal power is. And with the Sun and Mercury here now, the Sun is not necessarily the happiest right now because it's in its opposition. It's in its detriment in Aquarius. It's the ruler of Leo, which is the opposite. So it's not, the Sun is not at its full power, but it's also squaring Uranus today, which is the ruler of Aquarius. And so there's definitely already today, just you can feel that tension between this. Not only is Mercury giving us the messages and stimulating our mental activity around wanting to break free and be free, the Sun is also like charging that in some ways and showing us how the person we came here to be also wants to be free. And so there is this element of like total freedom of like, I am who I am, and that's what is best for everybody, is when we're all our unique selves. And that's kind of the weird polarity with Aquarius, is that there is no polarity with Aquarius. It just is kind of like Pisces, but it's more in the mind. It's very conceptual. But this is where Scorpio is feeling powerful and emotionally secure. And this is the root system of Scorpios, is this fixed air, innovator, rebellious, I'm going to do whatever I want Aquarius. And Scorpios, they are just so, I have a Scorpio moon, there's just so much, drive and hunger for information and knowledge, and to understand power and to be embroiled with power. Scorpios want to get to the bottom of everything and understand it from every angle, really, and are very powerful when it comes to understanding the truth behind things and being able to see the man behind the curtain. And so it makes sense to be feeling that your emotional security and your internalized power is very much in this collective third eye. I'm going to do whatever I want. And this is where, so now we have the Sun and Mercury here stimulating that for Scorpios. And so there might be this drive to like just break free of any restrictions, because that is where you feel the most secure. Which is interesting, because the way you communicate is very much rooted in a material, powerful, traditional sense. And so Scorpios are really feeling it. They want to really break out of that zone, because that's how they acquire knowledge. But now it's just like, I feel my power is in my freedom. So Neptune and now Pisces Neptune and Venus are now in Pisces, which is your fifth house, which is about your joy and your self-expression and where are you at the center of your stage. The Sun is the traditional ruler of the fifth house, and so it's about romance and passion. And, the Sun is the center of our solar system. It's the focus of all of our attention. So when we're at the fifth house, we as individuals, we are focusing on ourselves as the central point of everything. And it's about being able to creatively self-express. It's still about us at this point in the chart. First through sixth houses are about individual development. So this is the place where our hearts are open and that we feel like our creative abilities can flow and our full expression can come to the surface and be, showcased, and seen for what it is, and a need to feel our inner diva, whatever that is. And so for Scorpios, that is another water sign, it's in Pisces. Scorpios have a fifth house Pisces, and so where you feel joy, where you feel full expression, is really dissolving into this undifferentiated, boundaryless space of beauty and compassion. It's Scorpios being water, where they feel the most self-expressive and free is in the water realms, and it's about just dissolving into everything. And Neptune's been here for a while and is the ruler of your fifth house, because Neptune's the ruler of Pisces. And so there's been so much, I just think there's just been so much fog and confusion, but also inspiration and a lot of psychic activity and intuitive messages for a while that are coming in for Scorpio about this. And now that Venus is here, it's made it so much more tangible and real and feel good for us. And so Venus, right after the new moon, which is happening on Friday, like within just a couple of days, Venus is going to line up eventually with Neptune. And I feel like this is going to be a big, this is going to be a big download and inspirational moment for everybody. But for Scorpios, it's going to be in this playful, romantic, passionate, self-expressive house, and really going to get a sense of what it is that does make your heart sing, because you are just desiring freedom so bad. Like, that is really where you feel rooted, is being an individual within the collective and using your mind, your sharp mind. That's where you feel the most powerful. There, and it means breaking out of some of these old ways of thinking, Scorpio. Like, obviously, this is how we learned to see life, was in a very material way. The third house, or Capricorn, is very much about physical reality and the building of long-lasting structures. It's about institutions and governments. So this is how, as Scorpios, we've learned to communicate. And so we're really wanting freedom. This is where we feel balanced and emotionally stable. And we're about to get some really nice inspiration on a very compassionate, spiritual, beautiful level about what it is that truly allows us to express ourselves. Because Chiron is in Aries in the 6th house. And the 6th house is, what do I do on the daily? Now, what are the physical, actual routines? What are all the details, and where do they belong? What are my habits? What are my duties? Where am I situating all the aspects of my life in order to cultivate my own inner mastery for the sake of service? And it's in Aries, a fire sign. So there is definitely some warriorship, and there is action hero type of energy with Mars and Aries. Aries is all about the self and the ego in terms of, I am here, I am alive, and my needs I'm going out to meet my needs, and it's very action oriented in Aries. And so Scorpios, I think, really want to create, cultivate our own inner mastery through this really active flash of energy type of activities. This is what allows us to be masters, is to be kind of like an action hero, like a superhero. And but we're cultivating on the inside, we're creating, ourselves to be this person in order to then show up fully in partnership. And Chiron being here is definitely drawing our attention to the fact that there is definitely some very deep wounding and shame around being this person, around taking action for ourselves, and especially with Scorpio, because it is in such a sign of service and being creating something that allows you to eventually have full communion with the collective and with the divine, whatever that means to you. And so Scorpios would be advised to really kind of lean in a little bit to Chiron and see where this wounding and shame archetype is for you, because it is informing us really about how we are able to, informing us about, where we could let go of something, where we could let go of this wound in order to actualize this 6th house energy. And then we have Taurus, which is the opposite of Scorpio, in the 7th house. And so Scorpios show up in relationships as very stable, as very stubborn at times, very much the physical manifestation of basic natural law. And Uranus is here now and is moving direct, and has been since the solar eclipse, or since the Saturn-Pluto conjunction, basically, right before it. And so now, these are shifts in our physical like our bodies, the land we live on, our money and our resources, like actual physical, tangible resources that we have around us. Uranus is, making quick changes, and today is squaring the sun, which is in your house of emotional security and personal power. And so there's definitely going to be this oh man, this is a lot of tension I can feel right now in terms of your own personal power, where you feel emotionally secure, and squaring with this Uranus and Taurus that's you show up as this stable, unmovable presence in your relationships, and Uranus is just shaking that shit right up. And so this could definitely have come out in a really big way today, especially because Uranus is the ruler of Aquarius. So to have a sun in Aquarius interacting with Uranus, it's really just charging that Aquarian energy, I think. Let's not forget about Mars in our second house of resources. It is the Taurus house, resources, what we inherited when we came into this life, everything that's the medium in which we are planted and grow. So it's everything that we have at our disposal. So it does mean physical and material resources, but it also means energetic resources and inherited karma and all that kind of stuff. And Mars is just plodding along, just moving full speed ahead in this house, and it's a fire sign. And so Mars is very, again, the action hero energy. And it's about finding the truth in Sagittarius. It's seeking the truth in Sagittarius. It's about the big picture. It's about the understanding of everything that Scorpio has dug up. And so Mars is really getting, charging forward in this crusade when it comes to what do we actually have at our disposal? What is the medium in which we find ourselves? And since this is a Taurus house traditionally, and right now is, since it's Sag, it's ruled by Jupiter, which is in Capricorn right now. So that's very, again, going back to the education and the way that we conceptualize reality in the third house. It's interesting. So there's a lot of tension here between Scorpio's need for freedom and dissolving back into this dreamy, watery state as a way to fully express ourselves. So the reading is very interesting. Some of them have already come up face up, but we'll go through the whole thing. And with the Akashic Tarot, what's coming into the situation, what's been brought to this moment. So we have the center here, which is the moment, the heart of the moment right now, but this is, I guess you could call it the past. I really like to think of it as the cause, or the energy coming into the situation. You're bringing this stuff with you into the moment, and then it interacts with everything else, because this vertical placement is your energetic axis, where you're at energetically. So the situations that are coming into this moment that have been happening, the Eight of Scrolls. Wow, my face just got really, really hot. The Eight of Scrolls. So the scrolls are about writing and publishing. It's about the mental activity. It's like the swords in the tarot, but it's more about the information being transcribed in a way, available for us to access, kind of like the Akashic Records. So the Eight of Scrolls is the paths unknown. And it's kind of hard to see, but there's this path here is a little darker, and the path right in front of this person, which is lit and very well trodden. And then there's one right over here that she doesn't even see because it's kind of behind her. And there's a fox in front of that, and then there's a raccoon, and then there's a squirrel. Raccoons are usually not considered the most friendly animals, and people tend to think of them as rodents, even though squirrels, I think, are equally as rodent-like. But they also are considered kind of safe and docile and harmless, so it's in front of this really well-lit path. And then there's this fox, this clever fox, right back here on this trail that this person's not even looking at. She's got her basket of scrolls. It's been really hard to know where we're going, and maybe you've had a hard time really picking a path because we have a lot of information. We've collected a lot of ideas, and we have them in our little basket. And we're just kind of we've been standing here being like, which path do I really want to take? And because Saturn and Pluto has made a huge reconfiguration around what we actually know and how we collect that information. So I think that it's been hard to make a decision or to know where we're going because our whole conception of reality has just been kind of spun around and recalibrated, and we don't really know how to move forward with that, because with Capricorn, you know exactly what you're doing, where you're going, you have a plan. It's very linear in terms of the path you're on. You know, you're going up the mountain. And so when that got restructured with Saturn and Pluto, I think that it made it a little bit hard to know where we were going. So the heart of the matter, what's going on right now for Scorpio, this is the divine physician, number 6, okay? So this person is kind of healing somebody's heart with the, you know, Reiki energy coming out of their hands, and it's got a pail of water, and she's very open to receiving it. She kind of has her, you can see she's kind of got her head tilted back, and she's open, and she's receiving it, you know, actively. And these other people are there bearing witness. Divine physician, and then the lookout, which is reversed. So we can look at it upright, because this has come up before, and this is, you know, the lookout up in the crow's nest looking out on what's going on out there while the ship is on fire right beneath him, but it's reversed. And usually with this position, it's more of like you have fallen out of the crow's nest, and thank God, because you are now able to leave behind the shit show that is this burning ship that you were on, and now you've managed to be flung from it and get away, which is, I think, is a really good sign for Scorpios right now. And on top of that, you have, so these are both major trumps, by the way, 17 with the lookout and number 6 with the divine physician. I think that it may have seemed like you've been thrown out of your crow's nest, or completely misplaced or displaced. I think that's the better word. But the reality is that is a healing. That is a divine healing that ultimately has allowed you to get away from the burning ship that is not going to take you anywhere. And in fact, if you had stayed in that crow's nest, you would have gone down with that ship too. Now the lookout, he's this position, or this card, he's very diligent, you know, he hasn't left his post, he's still looking out at the battle, and so there's something to be said for that. But in this situation, Scorpios, I don't feel like that we need to be standing at that post, and which is interesting, because we're feeling our power, our personal power, in terms of breaking freedom, you know, cutting loose in some ways. And so the divine physician in this position as well is suggesting to me that there is also a divine healing that has come along with this. Like, this is definitely part of whatever situation you've been ejected from in some ways. It's not bad that you were, because ultimately you would have gone down with it. And it's also the essence of it is part of your healing process. It's divine healing process. And also, too, the idea that you yourself are stepping into this role as a divine physician, and falling, you know, getting away from the burning ship has also allowed that to happen. So what's going on in the top of your mind? What do you focus on, Scorpio? What are we focused on? I keep saying you, like I'm not part of this. What are we focused on? What's in our conscious awareness? Our thoughts are really focused on. And this is the Queen of Forces, and she is a total badass, right? She is balancing the sun and the moon concurrently. She's standing in this pool of water. She's outside, you know, she's got surrounded in this landscape. She's also got dark hair. She's like mysterious if you really look at her. She's got dark hair, and you're not really necessarily sure what she's going to do, because the reality is she's so powerful, and she's so capable of balancing the elements and the forces, that she's a sorceress, but you don't know what the hell she's going to do. And if you are not on her good side, I would really watch out, because this bitch is badass. And this is really what we're focused on right now, is being this person, especially with it being a court card. It's very much about the people involved, as opposed to specifically an archetypal symbol being related to a situation. This is very much us aligning with the fact that we are this Queen of Forces, that we want to be this Queen of Forces, that we are feeling drawn to be this Queen of Forces, like really in control of the environment and creating and being passionate. Because the forces are the wands. It's the creative fire energy in this particular deck. But what's going on underneath? It's very interesting. What is in our subconscious that we're not quite aware of? And there's two cards that came up here. So number 4, views of the ego. Scorpio. And then also winged messenger, but it's reversed. So these are 2 roses cards, the 2 of roses and the 4 of roses. Scorpio, there's definitely something, taking a good look at ourselves or somebody else. In the winged messenger, it's usually because there's some sort of upset about a situation. You know, there's this little tea set and one of the cups is like overturned, and then there's this bird here, but then there's this other white bird like a dove or an eagle or something's coming in with a scroll, and there's an outline of a bird in fire behind it. So it's it's like divine messages, but it's reversed. I don't think we're really listening to this message, really. Views of the ego. I think it's, again, there's this 7th house, or Chiron in Aries. That's what it makes me think of. And at the root of it, where we're focused is this Queen of Forces, this sorceress energy. She's so powerful. But really what's rooted at the bottom here is this, like, consideration about the ego and looking at ourselves in the mirror. And there's been an upset, and I don't think that we're quite, maybe it's over now, maybe we haven't necessarily like engaged with it fully, but it's really about how we feel about ourselves and about how we feel about ourselves when we look at ourselves in the mirror. And that's really actually what's at the root of this, as opposed to this Queen of Forces is a really nice idea. It's pretty awesome, and I think that it's something we're aspiring towards, but at the same time, I think that it's a lot more in the heart, and and there's something that we're not really engaging with very, and again, the 6th house of Pisces, right? Dissolving into source. It's about love and compassion and oneness, and the idea that we're all spiritually one. It's the end of the cycle. We all go back to whence we came, and that is the service of Scorpio, is to really be aligned with that energy. But if we are not really looking at ourselves in the mirror as a whole, and like emotionally, I think there's something emotionally that we really need to deal with when it comes to how we feel about ourselves, looking ourselves in the mirror, and what there's been an upset, there's been something going on emotionally, that there's information that could be, there's something to be learned here, but at the same time, it doesn't seem like it's coming in very strong. And I think that this Queen of Forces is a huge distraction. Not that we shouldn't be aspiring to that, but it's a distraction. We can't even get to this point until we start dealing with our heart. And so what to expect as a result of all of these things? The 3 of Forces, the bird's nest. This is not a Cancer card. I don't know what is, or a 4th house card, right? It's cultivating a home and a nest where you can grow and become your fullest version of yourself. Oh, that's so nice. I really like that. It's not exactly the most glamorous reading, especially because Scorpios are so much this Queen of Forces in some ways. Like, we really, really want to, just dive in really deep. But, it's where we're focused right now is, how are we going to feel personally empowered? How are we going to feel personally expressive? Like, where is it that we can really express ourselves? How can we master ourselves? And eventually, when we get to Aries, or not Aries, when we get to Taurus. No. Now I'm confused. Hold on one second. Scorpio. It's incredibly unprofessional. Oh yeah, Aries in your 6th house. So 4th house, your 5th house is Pisces. Aries, your 6th house. How are you mastering yourself in order to... How are you mastering yourself in order to show up fully in relationship? And then we get to the 7th house with Uranus squaring the sun. Uranus being in your house of partnerships and being a really solid, stable, not budging essence in your relationships. But it just seems to me like that there is a need to really... let yourself be thrown out of one nest so that you can, the crow's nest, right? Oh gosh. And then, so you can allow yourself to really cultivate the actual place where you feel secure and where you feel emotionally vulnerable. These are little babies, and there's a mama that's coming and feeding them, and they're safe in a tree. I think Saturn and Pluto has really thrown Scorpios for a loop and literally thrown them out of the crow's nest in terms of what they the essence of how they interact with reality. But it's all for healing. It's all for a divine healing. And I think we'll get to that Queen of Forces, but first we got to deal with our bird's nest. This is some basic stuff. And part of that is really being able to look at ourselves in the mirror and not be afraid of the information that we're getting and not be afraid of the message, because there is a beautiful message there for us. So